Coming up next on All About Android, it's me, Jason Howell, my co-hosts Ron Richards and Wen Tui Dao, and our guest Michal Rahman from Esper.io. Android 13, is it coming to a Nest Hub near you? Also Android 13, throttling your apps, but is that a good thing? Is Nothing's Phone 1 actually something to get excited about? Do we care that Xiaomi is throttling its new phone for Geekbench, the same thing that Samsung did? Do we want messaging interoperability? Should I stop asking questions during this tease? All About Android is next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Listeners of this program get an ad-free version if they're members of Club Twit. $7 a month gives you ad-free versions of all of our shows, plus membership in the Club Twit Discord, a great clubhouse for Twit listeners. And finally, the Twit Plus feed with shows like Stacy's Book Club, The Untitled Linux Show, The Giz Fizz, and more. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit. And thanks for your support.
Hello, welcome to All About Android, episode 571, recorded on Tuesday, March 29th, 2022. Your weekly source for latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Ron Richards.
And I'm Wen Tui Dao.
Oh, yeah. And we are the three amigos. No, we aren't.
Hooray!
Good to see y'all.
Good reference.
And yeah, I know. You know, that's actually, I have to say, that's a pretty darn fun movie.
That is a classic film. Let me tell you, that is. I mean, you got comedy giants in it. It is a well written. One of my favorite shots of all cinema is in that film. I love it.
It's easy to think that you can write that one off, but when you watch it,
it's great.
It stands the test of time. It's pretty classic. Joining us, not one of the actors from the Three Amigos. Oh no, it's Michal Rahman from Esper.io. Welcome back to the show, Michal.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
Yeah, always good to get you on. Michal, if you didn't know, was at XDA Developers for quite a while. Now at Esper.io, senior technical editor, also author of the Android Edge newsletter, also co-host of the Android Bytes podcast, which I think the last time we had you on, correct me if I'm mistaken, but I don't think we've had you on since you started that podcast. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so Android Bytes is a podcast. We don't cover like news stories or anything like that. We pick a specific topic that relates to the Android ecosystem or the Android platform. For example, our episode that went up this week was about the SafetyNet attestation API and how developers can use that to detect, if their applications are running in a software environment that's tampered with or not, and how app developers and hackers and modders bypass that API. We also talk about things like Android Auto, Android Automotive. We talk about things at a broad, high level. We try to educate users about all different aspects of Android, and not just like app of the week or news of the week.
Which, right. I mean, that really ties in.
There's definitely gotta, yeah.
Yeah, with what you guys do at Esper.io. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Of course, your co-host, friend of the show, David Ruddock, as well. So, right on. Congratulations. You are obviously keeping very busy, not only because of the podcast and the newsletter, but you're writing a ton, which we're going to be talking about in the top news block. We've got a bunch of your articles to talk about. So why don't we dive right in and learn a whole bunch that we didn't already know about Android 13? It's time for the news. Burke's given up.
The irony is that he didn't turn his mic on. So there you go.
No, I'm here in the studio. I didn't even hear a whisper from him. I think Burke was just like, you know what, today
it's another
not feeling
dimension.
it.
Yeah, it's fine.
Which,
it's okay,
you know
Burke.
what, we all need a little break from time to time, so it's all
Listen, 571 episodes without a break. we take a break. We take a break at the end of the year. That's not accurate. But we do 50 weeks in a row. So,
yeah, exactly. Well, so Android 13. Let's dive into this. And actually, Michal, you wrote an article that kind of seemed to happen right about the time that 9 to 5 Google had an article. They kind of seem to play hand in hand together. 9 to 5 Google had an article last week that was about a detachable tablet form factor for the Nest Hub, for the Nest Smart Display, like a future smart display coming sometime this year, I believe. And then you wrote about changes in Android 13 that seem to pave the way for this in some capacity. So I guess tell us a little bit about what you discovered, because you were kind of the of all the sources that I read who dive into, what's going on in like future versions of Android, you're the most prolific. Like you really seem to get in there and really pick apart the morsels that a lot of other people are missing. What did you discover about Android 13?
So whenever you look at new features in new versions of Android, whenever Google releases a developer preview, they announce a couple of changes, but oftentimes there's a whole bunch of under the hood platform changes and new APIs and new features that they introduce, but they don't really tell you why they're introducing them. And if you dig deeper and peel back a few layers, you kind of are able to piece together the why. And usually it's related to some hardware or product they're planning to release. It's just the way it is. They do a pretty good job of covering up that fact, but you come to these conclusions based on, what product they're working on. And in this instance, 9 to 5 Google came out with a report that, as you said, detailed Google Nest plan to release a detachable tablet / smart display form factor. And coincidentally, I was piecing together a whole bunch of APIs and documenting a whole bunch of new features that were coming in Android 13. And I was like, a lot of these seem like they're perfectly suited specifically for this device and this form factor. And knowing Google's history of releasing features that are, coincidentally or not so coincidentally coinciding with a new product they're working on, that helped me put 2 and 2 together. So that's why I'm confident that a lot of these features that I mentioned in that article are probably related to this upcoming product.
So what exactly ties these things together? Like, is this an API, like a discovery of a certain like API or a couple of APIs that would facilitate this? Like, what? I guess where I'm coming from is what would prevent Google from doing this prior to Android 13 that is now enabled with Android 13 and a future detachable tablet version of the Nest Hub?
So I think the two biggest blockers for releasing releasing Android as a smart display OS would be its support for big displays. Prior to Android 12L, there wasn't much in the way of adapting or native support for adapting applications to big screens and launching applications on big screens. Android 12L introduced a taskbar, which is being massively iterated on Android 13. And then in 13, we're seeing the introduction or the revitalization of screensavers, which is a feature that was introduced all the way back in Android 4.2. That feature is getting a whole lot of love from Google this time around, none of which they've announced. It's all hidden under the hood. Mm-hmm. But if you were to peel back, you're able to see that a lot of the features that they're working on are proprietary to Google devices. So a lot of this won't be available in the AOSP build of Android 13, but it will be available in Google specific like system UI applications. So that makes you wonder, why are these features being built specifically for Google products? It doesn't really make much sense for a smartphone to be docked and constantly displaying a screensaver, or in the same vein, it doesn't make much sense for a foldable to be docked and displaying a screensaver. So that makes you question, like, why is Google doing this? And then, lo and behold, Google's working on a detachable tablet / smart display Nest device, and the puzzle pieces fit together perfectly.
Yeah. So I guess the question that came up to me as I was kind of like reading through, both your article and the 9 to 5 Google article and kind of thinking about the synergies between these two efforts is we've been hearing about, a tablet hardware coming from Google. Is this the tablet? Like, is this the tablet, or are we, or is there going to be a Pixel tablet alongside this? Like, I guess it depends on whether this is, if it's a smart display, it's not tablet first, but it is a tablet at the end of the day, if this is accurate. I don't know. What do you think, Wynn? Do you think we're going to see multiple tablets coming from Google, or or would this be it? Or I don't know. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. We've kind of been waiting around long enough for all these devices. I don't know. I don't really see a cadre, whatever that word is, a fleet, whatever the plural of tablets are. I don't really see it coming. I do think that this is actually pretty interesting. This like detachable tablet, which is kind of like in and of itself a pretty unique large screen. So it might be, I think what would be really interesting to see is, kind of like a standard, tablet, but then also kind of taking the idea of large screens and really bending it. Because again, we're kind of looking for the killer use cases. Did I say bend it?
Yeah.
Did I say bend it? Like Beckham?
I was hoping you were going to merge tablets and foldables.
And foldables.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, like maybe some kind of just exploring the kind of the use case for large screens. And I think something that we've mentioned, but that is a good point that maybe doesn't get enough attention, is smart displays, smart screens, and kind of alternatives to what we traditionally think of as tablets or even foldables. So I think it'd be interesting to see Google release at least some kind of, I guess, standards or kind of like not killer, but unique use cases for the large screens that kind of like allow you to see what the possibilities are.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what this is in particular and how this shakes out.
Well, yeah, and I echo that. I want to see what the possibilities are, but also like the idea we've talked about. I've dubbed 22 as the year of the tablet. Right? Like, I feel like we're gaining momentum here, large screens, like this whole kind of stuff happens. But if you think about if Google's going to re-enter the space, are they just going to do what they did previously? Or are they going to try to do something different?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you have an entire line of smart displays that already exist out there, how do you switch that up? How do you inject some energy into that line? You make it a detachable tablet display. Now you've got a two-in-one, so to speak. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's really, really compelling.
It's like drawing direct lines. Yeah, it's like drawing like it's basically kind of mutating, hybridizing, kind of all the different like large screens, all the different experiences they have, and trying to make it coherent is maybe like a little bit too positive of a word, but yeah, really just kind of drawing a very distinct line. It's both a smart display and a tablet, so I just think that's really interesting. It's not what I would have expected, but I like it.
Yeah, well, I wonder how fully featured of a tablet it actually is. You know what I mean?
Fair,
if it's a smart display that's running on Android and can do some tablet-y things, or if it's like a full-on like Android 13 tablet that when it docks in that display, it kicks into, the mode that turns it into like the full-fledged smart display. So it actually serves both needs equally. Like if I put my Pixel on the Pixel stand, it automatically kicks into a mode that kind of has some smart display, functionality to it. Is that what we get, here with this tablet? Obviously we don't know the answer to that, but.
So I actually have a prediction in that vein. I'm predicting that this device will run a full-fledged version of Android 13, which would be a first for Google. Previous Nest Hub displays, the first generation used to run a very, very stripped down version of Android, which they call the Google Glass platform. And then that was migrated over to Fuchsia OS. But the second gen Nest Hub continues to run that stripped down version of Android called Google Cast. And I believe that's based on Android 7 Nougat, so it's ancient. And since it's so stripped down, it doesn't contain Google mobile services. It doesn't really contain anything that you could use to install regular Android applications on. But I'm thinking this device will include a full-fledged build of Android 13 in order to facilitate, using it as an actual tablet that you can detach and, run your various applications on and then dock it and have it sit there as a smart display like you previously used to. And that's why they're adding a lot of these features. And I'm thinking that the way Google would market this product, there'll be two use cases. The one will be the bedside use case. So say I have a smart display. I have a second gen Nest Hub next to my bed, and that monitors my sleep. But once I get out of bed and leave my bedroom, that display is just sitting there. It's useless to me. It's not doing anything when I'm outside of the room. Whereas this detachable tablet, once it's sitting on the dock, and then once I'm out of bed, say it's a Sunday, I could detach it and just go around the house and just lazily sit on the couch and browse Reddit or whatever. And some of the features that are being added suggest that Google is trying to, implement this bedside use case as well as implement the family room use case. One of the APIs that I saw Google introduce, or they're working on, is called ambient context. And this API would allow applications to provide event detection for things like snoring and coughing. So if you recall, the second gen Nest Hub actually supports something called sleep sensing. And one of the things that it detects is snoring and coughing. So my idea is that this API is being introduced in Android 13. So Google can re-implement this feature when it introduces this device, because whatever way they implemented it before wouldn't work once they port full-fledged Android 13 over. And then in the media room use case, there are other features that point to Google wants this to be the center of the family room. There's a media tap-to-transfer feature that Google is working on that would let you move your smartphone close to the device, and then you can transfer whatever media is being played back from your phone to the device. So if you have a tablet docked in your living room, you could just move your phone close to it, tap it, and then it would transfer playback from your phone to that device, which obviously will probably have much better speakers. Mm-hmm. And there are other APIs like cross-device calling, which Google has been working on, that would allow you to, whenever your phone receives an incoming phone call, it could seamlessly transfer the audio to the dock tablet, which doesn't have a telephony capability. So there are a lot of features that I've spotted in Android 13 that seem to hint at supporting these various use cases in the bedroom and in the living room. And I think that's the direction Google is taking with these features, and maybe that's the way they'll implement it in this Nest product.
Yeah, and part of what you wrote about, alluded to the fact that like Android 12.1, we're used to that being Google cares about tablets again. Here's a bunch of things that are really great for tablets. That appears to be the foundation on top of some of the really cool and more interesting kind of tablet influenced functionality that seems like is going to come with Android 13. So you could be right, Ron. Year of the tablet. Although, have we had the year of the tablet before in Android world?
Maybe, but you can have another year of the tablet. I mean, every year.
It's a new decade.
Yeah.
It's a new decade, right? Every 10 years, we can have at least 1 year that qualifies as the year of the tablet. So we're in that right now. All right, Wynn, you got Michelle's other awesome article.
Yeah, so I love the title of this article, Michelle, because So the title of Michelle's article is Android 13 will add a setting to throttle internet speeds. And if you kind of just read that as given, you might be wondering, why would they do that? But there's actually pretty good reasons to do that. Michelle, if you don't mind, like kind of maybe just highlighting, why does this setting exist? I mean, I'm excited about it, but I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on why this is a good thing to be adding. Because we've talked about a lot of bad throttling lately in the few weeks, but why could this be a good thing?
So the official reason that Google is adding a setting to throttle internet speeds is for app developers. Currently, a lot of developers probably live in countries or have access to much faster internet speeds than the average worldwide internet connection. So that poses a problem whenever you try to mock a user's device who lives in maybe like an Asian country, and they have maximum of like 1 Mbps download speed, which is like painfully slow. How do you test your application's behavior when your internet speed is 100 Mbps and things load instantly versus a user's who has 1 Mbps and like things load painfully slowly? You might have unforeseen problems that like something loads too slowly and the application continues to move on without everything loading fully, and there might be some like unforeseen bugs. And in order to QA test that, you need some way to mimic that internet condition. So right now, there are some really convoluted ways you can do that. There's a funny
Yes.
solution on Stack Overflow. Someone mentioned putting your phone in a literal microwave. Don't turn it on, of course, because that would destroy it.
I saw that.
Put
Yeah.
it in a microwave so that would completely block any signal. And of course, there are saner options like launching the Android emulator in Android Studio
Yeah.
with the command line to throttle the speed manually. And you could also hotspot your phone or your device to another device and do that. You could VPN. There are many ways. But finally, Google is adding a native option in developer settings, presumably, that will let you just set a cap on the internet speed.
That sounds
Yeah, and I mean-
insanely useful.
It is so useful. And I can definitely attest that this is something that, I think a lot of us on dev teams kind of find our own ways around. Like, for example, in Trello, y'all don't get to look at it, but we actually have a dev panel where we actually intercept our network calls and either add delays or add like mock exceptions to try to catch some of this. It's not the best solution. It's not consistent. And I keep forgetting to turn it off when I'm actually deving something where I don't want any exceptions to come, like kind of like fake exceptions to come in. But it is as you mentioned, kind of really important. And I think I mentioned a few weeks ago about kind of like one of the great things about Android, and one of the things that I'm most proud of as being an Android dev, is that Android is kind of meant to be for everybody, and is in places where, you don't have great connectivity. There's still like, I was looking at a GSMA State of Mobile Internet Connectivity Report from 2021, and in places like which they call low to middle income countries, there's still like a large prevalence of 3G, even 2G in places. And as we kind of like keep getting better Android features, as we keep like doing more and more in terms of like what we do on the net in terms of streaming and video and all that kind of stuff, there's always going to be kind of a gap in connectivity and what you kind of wish you had and what you actually had. And actually as a dev, it's kind of easy to forget that. Very often we'll, be deving under like our optimal, like here I am in my office with my Wi-Fi, and certain things are hard to test. Like I actually was testing image loading this week on a feature that I'm working on, and I kind of forgot to work on the error screen because when is my image loading going to error unless like maybe my Wi-Fi blows out. So it's an easy thing to kind of bypass, especially for a lot of devs if you're in like kind of ideal situation. So having this as an easy way to kind of go through a checklist of, okay, here's how I deal with latency, here's how I deal with like throttle connection speeds, and having it be a consistent and non-microwave involved way of testing these things is super important, and kind of, again, part of like the hopefully Android ideal of developing for and optimizing apps for all kinds of connectivity, all kinds of like locations and all kinds of like users around the world. And even like in high income countries like here, you still have opportunities where you might not have great internet speeds. Like I think a big example we always talk about is even in, say, New York, where Trello's headquarters, whereas people go into the subway and you don't always have internet on the subway. So it's kind of like a high tide lifts all boats kind of thing when you have the ability and drive and kind of like the discipline to develop and optimize for these conditions. So this just makes it easier. It really just makes it easier. Sometimes it's really strangely hard to test for suboptimal conditions.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm actually pretty excited about this, and hopefully this will make it easier, because it's like ideally the right thing to do, but like in your day-to-day life when you just want to get crap working, you don't always think about these things. So hopefully this will make it easier, and also make it so that I don't keep leaving on insert exceptions into my network calls setting on our dev panel. So again, like it'll be less us having to manufacture our own solutions and kind of relying on Google stuff. So I actually was really excited about this.
Nice.
And yeah.
Well, and any time that you're resorting to putting your device into a microwave, that's probably like a signal that like, there's probably a better way.
Yep.
Google could probably figure out something that'll save some phones from getting nuked in the microwave.
It's just not good for the. It's not good for the display. It's not good.
No.
Like
Yeah, there's a lot that it's not good for. Turns out.
Not good for your microwave, right? I mean, that can't be good for your microwave or your food.
Not good for any of the plastic that it's built with.
Yeah, in general, just don't put your phone in your microwave. It's probably going to turn out bad if you do that. Yeah.
I mean, if anything, here's a microwave pro tip: lower the power level and cook longer.
Oh,
right. So because so I mean, I don't know if that would affect the phone at all in that way, but I find when I'm reheating food, I'll drop the power level to 60% and do it for like 4 minutes. You get a nice even cook as opposed to just the center being cold and the outside being hot. So like you definitely don't want the center of your phone to be hot.
It really depends on how much the phone is made up of water, actually, too.
Right. True.
Thermal
here's another pro tip.
cooling.
You can wet a paper towel and put it over the phone.
Right. Exactly.
And then
exactly.
I mean that works with dumplings. That works with your standard rice. Things like that. So maybe that works with your phone too.
Yeah. If it has thermal cooling, it might work better than if it doesn't.
I just want to warn anyone who's listening. The past several minutes was all parody and jokes.
Yes.
It was not
please
serious.
Do not do that.
Please don't put your phone
Please
into
don't
a
put
microwave.
your phone. Yes.
Not even just to say that you did. Just don't.
No, don't try to get email of the week.
That's right. No, we don't. You will not get
by
email
sending
of the
a photo.
week.
You will not get email of the week. Thank you. By sending a photo of your phone. Yeah, can we do it in backwards like the Beatles? But yeah, we don't want to see any stories of people who microwave their phones. Please, just don't.
For sure. All right. We have a whole lot more. This was just one of those weeks where, like, story after story, it's like, this is good. This is good. So we've got some really great hardware news coming up next in hardware.
Oh boy, oh boy.
Oh, Ron, I knew you'd be excited.
Let the puns begin because I am getting all excited about nothing. Can I just tell you that it's even more confusing for me, by the way, that Carl Pei's new company is called Nothing because, and I've talked about this before, but like one of my favorite more recent bands is also called Nothing. And so like now not only do I need to deal with the language of going to see a band called Nothing, but I also need to now make the adjustment as to when I'm talking about Nothing to my wife or to someone else, whether I'm talking about the phone or the band. It's very confusing. But yeah.
And then when you actually pick up a Nothing phone and then you go see the band Nothing
and take my picture with the Nothing phone,
your world is going to explode.
My favorite wordplay was that Nothing was playing in Brooklyn at a venue called Elsewhere, and so I told my wife, I said,
gosh.
"Yeah, I'm going to go see Nothing at Elsewhere," and she just looked at me and she's like, "I don't know what you're saying anymore." And just
this is not even. This doesn't make any sense.
This is just nonsense. So. All right. Well, anyway, so we got something out of nothing.
Yes.
Where Carl Pei's company finally announced the company's first smartphone with some details to share. I thought they were going to share their whole roadmap, by the way. We'll get to that in a moment. But so the phone is called, and I don't even know what to call this phone. It's called Phone One.
Yeah, I think that's how you'd say it.
Phone One, but you gotta hold your hands up and cup your hands like you're making parentheses around your head
for the number one.
Phone One.
Yeah, and one is not spelled out. It's the number one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's phone space. Left parentheses, number one, right parentheses.
It just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Yeah, the Nothing Phone One. So there it is. It's coming summer 2022, which cannot come fast enough. Let me tell you, everybody. And the promo video that they showed on this announcement, they alludes to some light strips on the back of the device, but Carl Pei did not comment on their function. Nothing also released shots of the OS, but don't get too excited because it was just a lot of dot matrix text and a lot of black, white, and red. Gone are the days.
Like a launcher, you know.
Yeah, gone are the days of like the pretty photo of flowers or anything like that. This is very minimalist and simple, and I actually kind of love it. Carl Pei did do an interview with The Verge, and some details came out of that, specifically around Nothing's acquisition of Essential, which, as was speculated, was all about the trademark. They didn't know if they'd want to call the company Essential or Nothing, and in the end, they opted for Nothing. So they spent all that money for nothing. And and Carl Pei compared nothing to Apple in it, and this is the only thing that kind of worries me about all this, and I want to get everybody hear what you think about it. He compared nothing to Apple in its aim to compete with Apple's walled garden approach to ecosystem.
Yeah.
So does that mean that they're trying to position nothing as another Apple, or are they trying to break down the walled garden of Apple? What do you think?
I think that from my understanding from the interview, it was almost like Carl Pei is looking at Apple's walled garden approach for how all of their devices are synchronous together, that they kind of enjoy that interoperability, that easy access to each other, and the deeper functionality that is enabled when you have control of that whole ecosystem. My understanding from the interview is that he was looking at that and saying, we kind of want that for nothing. So
well, you got to pay. You got to pay something.
For
you
nothing.
you just can't get that for nothing.
No.
I'm sorry. These jokes are impossible to avoid. Everyone, I'm sorry. It's just.
So I mean, maybe there is something to be concerned about with that, unless you are the type of person that enjoys this kind of like seamless ecosystem play. Which I don't know. Is there a way to have your cake and eat it too? I'm not so sure, but.
Yeah, it does seem like, especially as we, I feel like as we keep talking about large screens and why Android tablets don't have the same, success as iPad, that one of the things that does keep coming up as I kind of anecdotally talk to people is the integration, is this kind of walled garden where everything seems to fit together. And it seems to be something that Samsung more or less is trying to follow lead on, with having their cadre. There it goes again, using that word again.
Oh, wow. You cannot avoid that word.
I want to use it. That's my word tonight. Trying to like develop a family of products that are both branded tightly together, but also hopefully fit tightly together, including, things like an iPad-ish huge butt tablet. And it seems like this is kind of echoing that sentiment of, hey, maybe what is making the Apple ecosystem, successful is this integration, is this control. And I've heard my friends say that. It's like, well, I buy an iPad because it works with other things. I buy the Apple Watch because, it works with other things. And that is very appealing. I thought it was interesting. I think at the end of the article, they talked about possibly white labeling.
Yeah.
So instead of just making their own walled garden, they might end up being your landscaper and making, different companies their own walled gardens, so that it wouldn't just be one more walled garden, but a kingdom of walled gardens that maybe,
you bring that's a really good point, and something that I'm not super familiar with about Xiaomi's business, which was the comparison there. Michelle, are you familiar with this aspect? I'm just not super dialed into Xiaomi at their business model and everything. We talk about their phones on the show, and it comes up from time to time, but I wasn't aware of this like white labeling approach that Xiaomi is apparently involved in. Are you?
Well, I am aware that there are a lot of Xiaomi branded products that aren't actually made specifically by Xiaomi, the company. They pretty much license their name out to companies that make products and under the Mi brand. So there's a lot of products that specifically weren't made by Xiaomi, but that will carry their branding. And I believe that's what most people are referring to.
Okay. So, and it might not necessarily have to do with phones, because it's true, but Xiaomi has their hands in a lot of different products, not just devices, not just phones. So, yeah. Interesting. I guess we'll find out what that amounts to. Might amount to nothing.
I mean, seriously, they write themselves. They write themselves, everybody. It's
they're inescapable, really.
That's a good...
Yeah.
I was just going to say, someone in Discord, Isla G, said they didn't spend all that money for nothing. The purchase was essential. So
well done.
That's
Bravo.
A good one. That's a good one.
There you go.
So I got to say, seeing all the hype around nothing just reminds me that Carl Pei is a marketing genius. Like, he's picked up a lot of what he learned from OnePlus. Which was kind of aggravating when I was at XDA, having to cover all this news, the drip of here's one thing, here's a teaser for our teaser for our teaser.
Of information. Yes, exactly.
And, like, he's carried that over tremendously, and even though we all recognize he's doing it, it still works. Like, people are still covering every small little tidbit.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, though, that early on in OnePlus, in Carl Pei's days of OnePlus could not get out of their own way when it came to marketing and did numerous poor taste things. So hopefully he's learned from that as well. And like, it seems that nothing is taking the, I don't want to say higher road, but like the more pretentious route with brand in terms of which is a page from the Apple book, which makes sense given that, right? And so we'll see how it all plays out. I mean, I am very intrigued. I want to see this phone. I want to play with it. I'm tempted to get it. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. Yeah. Well, I was just saying that, we do talk about Xiaomi from time to time on the show. And this next story has to do with Xiaomi, although not necessarily in a good light. Samsung, you may remember, not too long ago, a few weeks ago, was kind of embroiled in this throttling controversy. And now apparently it's Xiaomi's turn, although it isn't their first time doing this, but Geekbench's John Poole actually took to Twitter to claim that Xiaomi is throttling its performance on certain apps. Said, quote, "Here are the results from a Xiaomi Mi 11 running Geekbench and Geekbench disguised as Fortnite. Single core scores 30% lower, multi-core scores 15% lower in the Fortnite build." So then this is basically essentially what we were talking about, a few weeks ago as far as what Samsung had done. Although there was a much larger list of apps that were studied, and I know that Android Police has done some work around this to kind of look into this charge by John Poole and test it out. And they are saying as well, they're seeing drops when they disguise the Geekbench app as other apps. So there you go. Is this just a thing that phone companies do, and we're just like at this point realizing, oh, wait a minute, they all kind of do it? Not, and again, is it wrong to throttle, or is it wrong to not tell someone that you're throttling? Michelle, I'm curious to know your take on this, because we've all talked about the Samsung controversy to great length. What do you think?
Yeah, so benchmark cheating, as you might have heard, has been a thing for years. It's been around. Every company. We've been calling out companies doing this for years now. OnePlus, Samsung, Xiaomi. Most of them have done it at one point. And I think the reason they do it is obvious, is because people care about benchmark numbers. And even if you see the marketing campaigns they run in like China or India, for example, they actually put like their Antutu or their Geekbench scores as part of like their slides when they're announcing a phone. Say this phone has the highest Antutu score ever, and that's actually something they're marketing on. So the fact that users care about these scores is the reason why companies go to the effort of cheating on these benchmarks, and there's not really many repercussions for them to do so.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, getting banned from Geekbench, it's something. But how?
It's not nothing.
It's not nothing. I was trying not to go there, Ron.
I did.
You did. Yeah. I mean, it's not much of a consequence, I suppose. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, because when we heard about Samsung, like the internet was on fire, or at least rather the Android internet was on fire. The Xiaomi news, how many days old is this now? And it didn't seem like people have been nearly, okay, it's a day old, 2 days old.
But here's the thing though, is that you, I'm trying to put this, how do I put this nicely and not super insulting to Xiaomi? You stop anyone on the street and ask them if they know Xiaomi, you're not going to get as much brand recognition as you will at Samsung, at least here in the States.
Here in the States, yeah.
That's fair.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, completely. Yeah. So like, it's just because of the trade imports and all that nonsense and all that sort of stuff, Xiaomi is not as well known, and I can't speak to what the reaction to this news is in other markets. And maybe they don't care. Maybe we're just a little too uppity and a little too looking for, things to freak out about.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. I'm always looking for things to freak out about.
Yeah. I'm a little too uppity, let me tell you.
So anyways, that's Xiaomi's controversy, and we'll see how that all plays out. Win, you got this exciting news.
Yeah. So from one of the internet's favorite leakers and memers, John Prosser, we've got some news that the Pixel 6a could still debut at IO 2022, but it still would be delayed in terms of launch, according to John's sources, because of, again, the global chip shortage, which we've all are very sadly aware of the last few years.
Yeah.
It looks like, though, we will hear something of what the 6A will be at I/O 2022, but won't be looking to get them into our grubby little phone person hands until July 28th. And according to a processor source, we also might be looking at a tease, not necessarily a full announcement, but a tease of the Pixel Watch, which also is delayed. And while we might just get a tease at I/O 2022, we might be looking at an October launch. So the Pixel Watch would be launching alongside the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro. And just to kind of round out the rumor mill, we got some kind of ideas of what a Pixel 6a might look like. Of course, maybe probably also carrying the Tensor chip, which we talked a little bit about last week in terms of putting a dent into the kind of worldwide share of high-end phones. It's going to probably have a 6.2-inch OLED display, a nice 12-megapixel Sony main camera, and a 4800 milliamp battery with 30-watt fast charging. And for the Pixel Watch, we're kind of thinking in the rumors, or hearing in the rumors rather, that it's going to have a round display, use the same Exynos W920 chipset that other Samsung watches like the Galaxy have, 32 gigabytes of onboard storage, LTE support, and, quote, next generation Google Assistant. And it sounds like the rumor is that it will be priced a bit higher than the best Fitbit watches, which would put it around $300 to $400 US. Y'all excited? You getting your watch? You're getting your wrists kind of warmed up for that Pixel Watch at all?
I'm just curious more than anything. I'm curious to see it. I'm curious to see Google kind of finally release their own wearable. But I mean, time and time again, I get a watch, even the Galaxy Watch 4, I have that. It's a really great watch. I just never wear it. I just don't think wearables are for me. Apparently, I can't be motivated enough to continue wearing them more than a couple of months. So I'm curious. I just don't know if it's going to be my device, but I don't know. What about y'all?
I'm same.
Yeah.
I just, whatever you just said, Jason, I generally like the idea of where I think there's always, especially as an app developer, I think there's a lot of interesting opportunities there to kind of bring certain capabilities, certain experiences, certain kind of conveniences to the user through Wear OS. But me personally, I'm about the same. I kind of get hot about it for a month or two, and then I'm just okay, back to my very stripped down fitness tracker. That's really all I need. It's a fun curiosity, and as a developer, I like the possibilities. But personally, not right.
And I just got to say, I've been off the wearable bandwagon for years now, just partially because I'm just not interested, and I don't have, and it doesn't align with my lifestyle as it is, especially, post pandemic, we're working from home. I'm
Totally.
stuck at home.
Yeah.
I'm literally at home 90% of the time now. You know what I mean? I don't need to track my steps to the kitchen. I don't need to get,
Although aren't you curious?
No, yeah, I don't need to know my heart rate. I don't need to get text messages. Just if it was me when wearables came out, Jesus, Jason, 10 years ago, 9 years ago, young bachelor living in San Francisco, that sort of thing. On the go, on the move. This is great. This is so cool. But now it just doesn't. I don't care.
Yeah.
So I'm more interested in the Pixel 6a because my sister needs a new phone. So.
The Pixel 6a that is rumored to no longer have the headphone jack, so keep that in mind as well.
Yeah.
The A series apparently is saying goodbye to the headphone jack. I mean, it was just bound to happen.
I've gone on record, but it was time to say goodbye to the headphone jack years ago. So
yeah.
Yeah.
We know how you feel about it, Ron. How do you feel about it, Michelle? Is that something that you're missing at this point, or have you gotten over it?
Yeah, I'm over it. I mean, my daily driver is a Pixel 6 Pro, and before that, I used the Zenfone 8, which had a headphone jack, but I didn't really use it that often.
Yeah.
Because I have a whole bunch of Bluetooth headsets, so it didn't really bother me.
Meanwhile, now it's trendy to use wired headphones again, apparently. So, the world works in mysterious ways. Once everybody gets used to the wireless thing, it's well, no, actually, I want the wired thing. This is just how it goes, people. All right, let me tell you something. we've got some really great news coming up in the app section, and that's right up next. Yeah, we got a 1-2 punch in apps news this week, starting with you, Ron.
Yes. All right. So this one I actually somewhat agree with. So EU lawmakers are crafting the Digital Markets Act, and it could have big ramifications for messaging, both on Android and iOS. Press release by the EU. We know the EU loves to legislate. The EU says that quote-unquote gatekeeper companies such as Meta, Apple, etc., would be required to make their apps interoperable with smaller messaging platforms at the developer's request. This would ensure cross-platform and cross-app communication by its users. And they would fine a company up to 10% of its global revenue for first-time infringement, up to 20% for repeated infringements.
Wow.
If the law is passed, it's expected to come into effect in October. And honestly, this could be the break in iMessage that we've been hoping for. Similar to the EU regulating Microsoft and breaking IE, Internet Explorer out of being, mandatory for users of Windows. And it's funny that this came up because I recently had a conversation with someone about the whole iMessage thing, and they said, you use WhatsApp. What about WhatsApp? That's a closed platform. I'm like, you're right. Like, I wonder if only there was an open protocol that worked with various different applications and phones and things like that allowed you to have choice. Like, I'm actually in support of that, and if we can come up with some sort of, and it's also really, really interesting seeing WhatsApp sponsoring, the Oscars and sponsoring like media events now under they have a commercial where it's talking about like how SMS is not encrypted and anyone can read your SMS messages, but on WhatsApp it's end-to-end encryption and it's private and it's privacy and all this sort of stuff. It's similar to just WhatsApp is taking a page out of the iMessage playbook in creating a false sense of you have to use this for this reason, and it's just continuing that kind of market boundary setting. So if this EU law kind of breaks that all apart, I will be curious to see how Apple and Meta respond and whether it creates changes that only work in Europe.
Yeah, there is that question, right? We'll do that, but only you get it because we have to where you are, and everybody else is still going to have to. I mean, but at the same time, it seems like the U.S. and the EU are very much, riding in the same direction as far as this stuff is concerned. So, if that were the case, I would guess that the U.S. would be there soon after. But maybe the companies would take the higher road and be like, you know what, you're right, fine. We'll make this easier for everyone. Should also point out that it used to be very cross-platform, messaging years ago, Yahoo Messenger, Facebook Messenger, Windows Live Messenger, AOL Instant Messenger, Gmail, Chat, all these services in one way or another. What was it, Jabber, or they had the XMPP protocol. They had ways where these things would interoperate, and at some point they all realized that if we don't make it interoperate, it actually helps us. It it ensures customer lock-in, and it promotes all these other things that we can do with our services integrated into them. So this the article on The Verge points that out, that this was a choice. This wasn't a technological barrier. Although the involvement of encryption in these services, I would guess, would create a little bit of a snag, or at least a challenge in the interoperability aspect of things. But Michelle, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, I think just the EU is kind of taking a really heavy-handed approach to this problem. As you mentioned, interoperability between services that offer encryption is going to be a technological challenge.
Yeah.
How are they going to solve two messaging services like Signal? All your chats are encrypted. How are they going to be interoperable with every other messaging service out there? The fallback in Signal is just SMS. But, if I'm sure every app could just add SMS and say they're interoperable with each other.
Yeah, that's another question that I had. That's a really good point. Right. Yeah. And if that's the case, then, that really...
It's not really a solution.
It's not a solution. It's definitely not the solution that I think some of us would hope for, but it might be the loophole. And they might be like, well, yeah, okay, at least that's something. SMS is pretty ubiquitous, so that solves the problem. I don't know.
Yeah, especially with the time frame that they're given. I think was it the basic interoperability they have to implement in 3 to 4 months. Is that right?
Yeah, it seemed really fast.
I was sweating reading that. I was like, oh my gosh.
This thing that's really taken us years to figure out, we need you to do it in 3 months or else. But hey, maybe that would motivate them to actually get it done. I don't know, but
or they could just pay the fine. I mean, that's the other thing is that they can choose not to comply, right?
Yeah.
And but that said, 10% of global revenue and 20% for repeat is how do you that's kind of bananas in terms of a fine. 20% of Apple's global revenue,
global annoal, I should say. I left that out, but yeah.
It's because they know the fines don't mean anything to most of the companies.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
So Michelle, when you say this is a heavy-handed approach from the EU, I feel like the EU exists in a heavy hand. That's where they do their best work, right? So it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always weird because it feels like there's a good intention here. Just like with a lot of the other kind of laws in the recent years that the EU has put out, GDPR, there's a good intention there. There's a good idea there, but it sometimes seems like the actual technical reality is a little bit more complex, or more making developers sweat. The actual logistics of it haven't been thought through. There was that one law that was it about another privacy law about HTTP. I can't remember, so I'm not going to keep talking about it. But it does seem kind of heavy-handed, although. It's again, two minds. This is kind of probably where we want ideally things to go, but probably not the avenue with which we wanted them to kind of come to us from. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But I mean, in other news of laws making companies do things and kind of knocking on the gatekeeper's door and saying, excuse me, the Google Play is actually going to pilot a third-party billing option with debut partner for this kind of new pilot program called User Billing Choice with Spotify. So this is kind of following up with, of course, as we've, talked occasionally about in the last year with Fortnite and Apple, and more recently with South Korea basically putting out anti-Google mandates, kind of basically demanding that Google make alternative billing systems available. This is going to be a pilot program for basically offering alternative third-party billing options side by side in Spotify. So Spotify is the debut partner, and it's kind of interesting that this is kind of where we start with Spotify, because it seems like, in the case that Google has to do this, this is where the direction of things are going. Spotify was called by Google a natural first partner because, of course, they are one of the largest subscription-based developers. They're everywhere, and not just in terms of region of where users are, where subscribers are, but also in terms of a wide range of devices and form factors, as a good, basically, test bed for this pilot program with user billing choice. And again, Spotify has kind of been at the forefront of a lot of this kind of basically pushing back on the larger developers like mostly Apple, but to some degree, to a large extent, is also Google as well. Spotify has been part of the Coalition for App Fairness, which includes, of course, Epic Games, but also Match Group, which is a developer of Tinder and Hinge, and basically kind of, again, pushing back and trying to wrest a bit more control out of the hands of Apple and Google over their respective stores. And this coalition has also been doing things like backing the Open Markets Act, Open Markets Act, which, again, is just, trying to get a little more nominally choice and, just third-party options for users. And of course, a lot of this is about money. As noted, App Store charge commissions ranging anywhere from between 15 to 30% on subscriptions and in-app purchases. So hopefully, with the user billing choice, as a developer, you might not have to pay as much commission on third-party payment platforms, but maybe not. As noted, in South Korea, where Google has already had to follow these, the reduction in commission was only 4%. I actually read that incorrectly. I thought the commission was down to 4%, but it's really a reduction of 4%. So it's kind of working, but it's not like all of a sudden, as a developer, if you're on a third party platform, you just get all the monies again. It's a process. It looks like Google is looking to really kind of build this program, experiment with it with Spotify, and so we'll see how this goes. This isn't out yet. It is being, I think it said, the Spotify anticipates launching the first iteration of this user choice billing later this year. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I don't know. Is this a good thing? I can't help but think it's a good thing, but how do you all feel about, I guess, how this is rolling out? And do you think that this will be a effective and lasting change so that we don't get situations like Fortnite v. Apple, or even, kind of like other things that we've heard about? What do y'all think?
I like user choice.
Yeah, exactly.
User choice is
right.
good.
Oh boy.
More choice is better. But how do you feel, Michelle? Are you breaking with the choice thing?
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
This is a quagmire.
Yeah.
Yes.
Google chose that term, user choice, very specifically.
Yeah,
Because
I know.
Google, like Apple, they're doing everything they can to stave off government regulation.
Yeah,
they already got hit with that in South Korea. But one thing that I noticed in, I think it was the Netherlands, that introduced a requirement that dating apps can implement their own, in-app purchase services. And Apple said, okay, we'll let you do that, but we'll charge you 27%, of any dating app sales that use non-Apple payment tech. And, they already charge 30% if you use their tech. So, what's the benefit here?
But that's 3% less.
Companies
That's 3%
less.
more in their pocket.
So,
that's amazing.
I see Apple and Google, they're watching what happens in every government and seeing how much they can get away with.
Yeah.
Giving a tiny bit, conceding a little bit to make it seem like, they're fully opening up to everyone. Like this announcement with the user choice billing with Spotify. They didn't announce the terms, how much is Spotify paying for every payment. They didn't announce how other developers can sign up and how much they'll be charging other developers. There's so much they didn't announce. And I'm really given all the documents and everything that's come out from the Epic v. Apple and Epic v. Google cases, I'm highly skeptical of pretty much anything Apple and Google announce when it comes to payment revenue sharing related.
Yeah, it's worth noting that Spotify, as you said, Michelle, they didn't really release any specific details and numbers. Spotify also did not mention any specifics, but they did say that the commission that they have arranged, quote, meets their standard of fairness. And Google also mentioned that, while they will offer alternative billing systems, that does not preclude service fees.
Right.
So,
So 27%.
That's where it goes.
Seems to be the going rate. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a good point, that this could be just a nominal kind of performative fairness when we don't actually know the details and we don't know where this is going to progress. And it's a work in progress. So if anything, it's good. It's good press to say, hey, we care about user choice, but what the end will look like in terms of commissions and fairness, and whether this will actually be true user choice and not just two more crappy options. Or more crappy options.
In some ways, this ties in with what we were talking about in the previous story, because the DMA that we were talking about, the Digital Markets Act, also has as part of its kind of list of things that they want to implement with this, App Store requirements that would make it so that platforms couldn't require the use of certain services, right? And so maybe this is a clue, getting back to what we were talking about maybe 5 minutes ago, maybe this is a clue as to what at least Google may end up doing worldwide, if there are requirements that tie into this. And I think their Spotify news came before the DMA news happened, so I don't think that it wasn't a reaction or anything too. But it indicates at least a little bit that Google is saying, all right, because you're right, Michelle, they are under the microscope right now in the EU and in the US and other places, for antitrust investigations and everything. So maybe this is at least an insight into how Google might play this on a global scale, just saying, okay, well, we'll do this for everybody. Having said that, the terms may just not be as great as anyone is hoping. We just don't know yet. We don't know what that's going to be. And it sounds like we probably won't know for a while. We aren't going to know at least until the end of the year. But hopefully we'll find out more about this. But interesting nonetheless. At least there's change. At least there is some change here because it has needed to happen. I just don't know how much that change is going to amount to. Hopefully a lot. But I'm not optimistic. All right. Coming up next, your feedback. AAA at twit.tv, 347 show AAA. That's where you can hit us up with your feedback, with your insight, your reviews, as is the case with this first email when you've got it.
Yeah, this comes from Juan de Colombia, and I have to say, hola a los desarrolladores en Colombia, en particular Medellin Android. I actually gave a talk in Medellin in 2016. Nice. They actually have a really amazing like Android developer community down there. So when I saw this was in Colombia, I had to just be like, hey, Medellin Android. Anyway. But that's not who was that was not who's mailing us. This was Juan from Colombia giving us a review of the Xiaomi Pad 5. Hey guys, just wanted to share my 3-week experience I've had with the Xiaomi Pad 5, my first Android tablet. Before I even got it, I was a bit concerned about the app experience, hearing most apps for tablets were just expanded phone apps, but it really is not the case. Sure, apps like Facebook and Instagram are exactly like this. But most apps like YouTube and MS Office apps work perfectly. MIUI 13 on the tablet is very iPad-like and has tons of features to make multitasking easy and productive. It comes with mouse and keyboard support, allowing it to be used mostly without touch. The speakers are awesome, and the display very bright and crispy for video watching. Sometimes you'll run into stuttering issues with the UI, but this seems to be an app issue rather than MIUI OS. Too bad Xiaomi stylus and keyboard are a bit on the pricey side, but other than that, pretty great tablet overall. Thank you so much, Juan. That's really exciting to hear.
Not bad. I know.
Not bad.
Look at this. He knows Xiaomi. If I stopped him on the street and asked him about it,
he would.
So yeah.
Yeah. 120 hertz display, Snapdragon 860, 8720 milliamp hour battery. I'm trying to find like a converted price for this. Mi Pad 5. I don't know. It's hard to say because they're all over the map, but $300, $400 ish, somewhere around there.
Nice.
You know, converted, anyways. Right on. I love when people who watch and listen to the show send in reviews of things, especially when we've not had a chance to play around with them or see them. It's great to hear that. So thank you for writing in, Juan. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Our next email comes in from Greg, and we have no idea where Greg is writing in from. Come on, Greg.
How dare you, Greg?
You know what you did. All right. So Greg says, and listen, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to my whole Google Nest Hub Home whatever device experience. I didn't mean to overshadow the show as much as it is. But these are practical usages of devices, right?
Great tips.
Exactly. So if you watched last week, you saw that in the past 2 weeks we've been talking about the interaction with Google Home and how it works and controlling lights and not having the Google Home talk to you and all that stuff. So Greg says, I also did a deep dive like Ron on how to silence the Google Assistant, particularly at night, so when I turn the lights off, it doesn't wake anyone. The method I use to talk to the Assistant via text rather than voice. On my Pixel 6, I fire up Assistant by holding the power button down, which reveals a little keyboard icon in the bottom right corner. If you tap that, you can then type in your command, which in my case is night, for a custom routine to turn off all the lights. Google then replies with her usual response back at you as text. Once the last used commands are displayed above the keyboard, meaning you don't have to type night or whatever again, you just tap it. So that's clever, actually. So if you do, like, it is learning enough that if you're doing the same response over and over again, it will predictive text suggest that for you, which is great, which is really cool. This is a great solution. I don't want to do that sometimes. I just want to talk sometimes. I just want to say,
You want to
AG,
talk
turn
and
off-
you don't want a response.
turn off the lights. So I will say that after a week of doing it, my solution of using night mode and having the volume go down to nothing after 8 o'clock until the morning has worked like a charm. It's been fantastic. Thank you. I didn't even have to regroup all of my lights into one room like the other solution. Although I did confirm that my Google Home Mini in the bedroom, if I say turn off the bedroom lights, it just goes the ding and then turns off the lights. It doesn't talk. So those two solutions are good. This is another solution. This is great. While we're on the topic, I will share the fact that I recently installed a new light above my garage. It's very exciting. There was an old motion detector light that didn't work anymore in the house that we moved in. So I got up on a ladder. I took that down, rewired it, put up a nice new, very nice light. And then I got to the point and realized that the circuit that light was on had no switch anywhere in the house. And so...
Oh, no.
And so I'm standing there looking at it going, oh, God, how am I going to turn this light on and off? And then I realized if I throw a smart bulb in there,
Yes.
I can set it. So what I did was I've got Philips Hue bulbs in the house, and I've got the Hue bridge, and so I put an outdoor floodlight in there, and then I got it all linked up. And on Google Home, I set a routine to say at sundown turn on the light and turn it off at midnight, and now it all works like a charm. It's fantastic and it looks great.
Perfect.
So, yeah, very happy.
Yeah.
So Google Home, there's some positive there. So
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. Right on. Cool. I love it. And I mean, you could always see when I read this email, I was like, yeah, you could totally do that. But I mean, if you're going to your phone, like if the phone is the solution, then I could always just open the smart home controls.
Right.
Thing
Exactly.
and just
Press the
tap
button,
the
press the
thing and
button.
not have to
Yeah,
type
exactly.
anything. It just
But
goes
if
to
he-
show everybody
but
has
if
a
he-
different
he
way
has-
of doing it.
But if he has a routine, Jason, where if he set up that routine when he says night, it does everything, then I see why you'd want to do that. He's done the work to program it. I assume, but you could also set that to be a button on your home screen that just triggers that routine. So
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
That's right.
yeah.
Okay.
So there are a lot of
different ways.
A lot of ways to skin this cat.
Yes. Indeed. Thank you, Greg from Nowhere. Appreciate it. All right. We have coming up now the email of the week. And it is from Toodlepip John in Luton, UK. Did I say that right? I hope I did.
Awesome.
All right, Toodlepip John says, and it's actually kind of a two-parter. First of all, Toodlepip John says, my solution to the headphone controls problem. This was in response to an email I believe we had last week where someone wrote in saying, hey, I like the Bluetooth earbuds that, have the like neck brace that have like all the buttons, but they're all moving to like a single button that does multiple things profile. And I don't like that. What are my options? Well, Toodlepip John has a solution for you. Says, my solution to the headphone, it's just so much fun to say. My
awesome.
solution
It's
to the
fantastic.
headphone controls problem is to use a Bluetooth adapter like this. And he links to the Filio BTR5. Says, I've been through various in-ear and wireless Bluetooth round neck headphones. These adapters let me choose headphones, earpieces, or even the radio in the kitchen that doesn't recognize my phone on its 3.5 millimeter jack auxiliary input. Also, one can use it as a USB sound card, and there's a fancy music player with loads of things to tweak. That's a solution that I had not considered because honestly, I didn't know that this existed. So it's the FIO. Sorry, not Filio. It's the FIO. FIIO. BTR. Is it FIO or FIO?
I think it's
don't know.
FIO.
Okay,
I'm
FIO.
familiar with these. They're amazing.
Are they?
Yes. They're
Have
awesome.
you used them?
Burke
I have
approved.
one. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
How do you use it? Tell us how you use it.
Well, it's a headphone. What I have is a headphone amp by them. It's USB.
Okay.
But it also outputs coaxial digital out also at the same thing.
Nice.
Yeah, all their stuff is great. I was just looking at one of their other things that they have on here. Not that one, but there's like this really awesome portable device. It's like this M17 thing.
Yeah.
It's like $1,800.
Wow.
Awesome.
Whoa.
I would never pay that, but yeah, that's what I said.
That's pretty cool.
Like a music player.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Well, that's like calling a Tesla a battery.
Oh,
But yeah.
so it's like a music file player.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That's all it does. That's interesting. Is this a category that you're familiar with, Michelle? I don't know why, but I don't know that I had ever really realized like this Bluetooth adapter thing existed. What about you?
I'm loosely familiar with it. I'm far from an audiophile, so I haven't justified splurging on purchasing one of these things, but I have considered it strongly in the past.
Yeah. And actually, Virgil in the chat is saying FiO have some really good music players. So, apparently this is a brand that just wasn't on my radar. So thank you, Toodlepip John. That was part 1 of your email, of your award-winning email. Part 2 is a question, and I don't actually have an answer for it, but I thought I'd just bring it up. It'll be one of those things where either we figure it out or, maybe folks listening or watching can have an answer. Toodlepip John says, I do have a question about Android audio. Sorry, not audio. Android, I think... Okay, I'm not really quite sure what he meant. Okay, Android Audio is what he said. I think I initially read it as Auto. In a particular app, an app called Vocal Pitch Monitor, I want to choose the input source, and I've tried various apps from the Play Store, and none of them seem to do it. All I want to do is use the adapter or the microphone on an earpiece so it's close to my mouth. This works during phone calls, but otherwise, no. Something like PAVU control in Linux. I'm not familiar with what that is, but I'm sure someone listening is. Could this be a reason to root my phone? So it sounds like... Okay.
You're not alone. This could go a lot of directions.
Oh, yeah?
Like bazillions. I have no idea.
Okay. Do you have an answer?
No. I'm trying to figure out what he's asking.
Oh, okay. No, I think I understand what he's asking. So this app, Vocal Pitch Monitor, it's an app that analyzes pitch, right? And so I don't know. I'm guessing that that John,
maybe, or to trigger something.
No, I think what John is using it for is, I'm guessing, maybe you're singing into it and you want to be sure that you're singing on pitch, and so this is a pitch analyzer and shows you on a graph how close you are to true pitch and that sort of thing. Just a guess. And he wants to use let's say an earbud mic.
Yeah, you're right.
As the input source. Instead of having to hold up the phone or whatever. But apparently the app doesn't allow for that. It only takes the mic from the phone. And there are other apps in the Play Store that might, smartly route, a plugged-in earbud with a microphone into other apps, but that's not working in the case of this app. So I don't know, on a broader scale, maybe not specific to this app, but have any of you heard of the ability of taking like the earbud, inline microphone and routing that into apps that are recording audio through the onboard microphone of a phone? Like, is that possible? Is that something that Root is going to enable?
It's almost like there's Rogue Amiga who does audio hijack. They have a application that is like the equivalent of an audio studio routing board, right? Where you can take the audio from one app or a device and send it to another one all through software. I've seen that, obviously, and I have the name of it. Hang on, I can find out what that's called. But that's a Mac OS app. It's not a
right.
It's not a mobile app. But yeah, Sound Source. That's what it's called. So it's essentially, I've never seen, and I'll share this for anybody who wants to care about it. Burke, I'm putting it in the Slack. It's called Sound Source by Rogue Amoeba, which basically lets you route audio devices and control all from the menu bar. I've never seen it on the mobile side of things. I would have to. I don't know if it's something that is able to be done, with or without Root. That's really interesting, though. But yeah, I have
a little bit of experience in this.
Oh yeah, what did you do?
So it really depends usually on the device the app. There are many Android apps that let you use built-in mic, but they also let you use an external mic or a USB device as an input source. But it also can be the device itself also can make a difference. But usually it's the software, I think.
If the developer has baked in support
100%.
for using an external mic.
Yeah, like oscilloscope apps. There's on Android, they'll let you use a mic that you might plug in that's a calibrated mic.
Right.
To stuff like that, or something like that would let you tune your guitar.
Right. Michal, former XDA editor in chief,
but Root, I don't think so.
Yeah, is this something that Root could solve potentially? What do you think?
I don't know of a way it can be solved with Root. I know it probably could, because with Root, especially with something like Exposed, you could probably, hook whatever code is responsible for defaulting to the built-in speakers as the default audio output, and then probably modify that to point to some external device. But by default, it's app dependent. I'm pretty sure the app has to itself enumerate what devices are connected and then choose or provide a way for the user to choose which source to use for audio input. And since it's app dependent, your mileage may vary.
Yeah, this app, which I'll put the link into the Slack. The app itself was last updated. And Google, please don't remove this information. I know we talked about it a month or two ago. The last updated July 9th, 2019. So, who knows if it even has the ability to do this. But an app like this, I think, would be really beneficial to be able to do something like that. But
yeah,
like that Spectrum Analyzer app over there in the here I would think would be more inclined to do it, but not necessarily.
But that's not
it really is.
That might not be given pitch, which it might be capable of it, but it might not be pulling off the same function. It's made by the same developer.
I wish every app would do things like this. Would just let you plug in your own device.
You can get some really detailed information about. I'm just looking through docs. I haven't done hardware in a while, so this is just me looking randomly at some docs. But you can get some really fascinating and detailed information on the kind of audio devices. I haven't found where you can actually request and change the audio device for recording, but they've got you can get device info specific to the type. You can get whether something is an aux mic, whether something is Bluetooth, whether something is built-in earpiece, built-in mic, built-in speaker. So the information is there. It just might be, as y'all have already said, just the app's not giving you the capability to switch audio devices, or is not looking for them. It's just going for whatever is active at the moment, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But wow, this is pretty cool. Really cool stuff. FM tuner, really? Cool.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
There's a huge, there's a huge list under device info of all the kind of different devices that I guess Android is able to let you know this is this device type. And there's a whole ton of crap in here. Hearing aids, you can determine whether an audio device is a hearing aid, a TV tuner. Oh, this is cool. Wired headset, wired headphones. Yeah. So it might, I think that definitely just is contributing evidence that it's app dependent on whether they have enabled you to change input sources.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you. Also, I will have Scooter X pointed out in chat that ToodlePip, when you Google search that,
every time,
ToodlePip is actually a way of saying goodbye. So that was just that wasn't your first name or even a nickname.
His name is Goodbye John?
As much as I really enjoyed calling you ToodlePip John.
It's like the sign off, instead of saying best or thanks John,
exactly.
He was like ToodlePip John.
Exactly.
Oh, so his name is ToodlePip. Oh.
I just really enjoyed the name being ToodlePip John. You will forever be ToodlePip John to me.
All of our Brit listeners are just rolling.
I know. They're like, seriously? This is what gets you rolling. Anywho, all right. Well, thank you, John, so much for your 2-part email. It was amazing. That's why it won the email of the week. Toodle pip. All right. We have reached the end of this episode of All About Android. It's been a lot of fun. And I have to say, Michal, this was the perfect episode for you to come on. Any episode is perfect for you to come on, but especially getting into the weeds on some of this stuff around Android 13, around the underlying architecture of Android. Really appreciate you taking time and hanging out with us tonight. Thank you.
Always happy to be here, and thanks for inviting me, Jason.
Absolutely. What do you want to leave people with? You've got a lot going on at Esper. What would you like people to know?
So if you want to stay up to date with the latest happenings in Android, I recommend you follow me on Twitter at Michal Rahman. You'll find anything I do posted there first, whether it's my newsletter, the podcast, any blog posts I write. So that's the best place to find out what's happening in Android.
Yes, indeed. You guys are doing great work at Esper. Just from an education standpoint, I feel like when I go into the Android subreddit, usually something that you wrote is near the top. So, week after week. So good work on that. Not that I'm at all surprised. You were putting out amazing work at XDA before you moved over to Esper. So keep it up. And say hi to David for me. And appreciate your time. We'll have you back very soon. Thank you. Win, what do you want to leave people with?
Well, I am an Android developer, and you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Queen Code Monkey. I occasionally give out or give technical talks on Android things, and you can find a list of my talks, video, and associated code on my website, randomlytyping.com. And I just want to say thank you, Michal, for all the very super thorough, breakdown of Android 13. I actually was texting messaging my team as I was going down. I was like, oh my gosh, look at this. Oh my gosh, look at this. And, oh my gosh, we'll have to account for this. So it's definitely especially as a dev, that's super valuable to get a heads up on that, and kind of know what we're in for. So again, also for my dev, thank you so much for all your hard work. It's awesome.
Yes, indeed.
Expect that article to double in length soon.
Oh, really? Of course. Actually, yeah.
It's already huge.
I'm not that surprised. All right, Ron, what about you?
As always, you can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at RonXO. And I talked about it last week, but for those of you following what I'm doing with Scorebit, you can get it in the Google Play Store. You can install the app, keep track of your pinball scores. We were just in Texas this past weekend. I was not there, but my partners were. I put a link in the doc. I don't know if it was too late, Burke, but we had some cool pictures. TJ Miller, previously of Silicon Valley, and the movie Deadpool was at the show, and he stopped by, played pinball in our booth. It was pretty cool. It was a good time. So a lot of people, it felt like a return to normal from what I was told. But yeah, there's a picture of our booth at the show. We had a couple pinball machines in there people could play on. There's a panel, video panel, Jay, the playbacks on Twitch. You can check that out of talking about score with other pinball manufacturers. And there's a photo of TJ Miller. Yep. So it was a good time. I wish I could have gone, but I was watching from afar and from home. So good times.
Yeah, right on.
Go check it out. It's scorebit.io.
Scorebit.io. Thank you, Ron. Awesome stuff. Thank you to Burke here in the studio for pushing the button that just cross-faded from Ron's camera to my camera. It's
so
practically
classic.
Magic. It's magical. So thank you, Burke, for that. Thank you, Victor, for publishing and editing and doing all the behind-the-scenes stuff to make it so that you at home can actually watch and listen to this show after we record it live. You can find me on Twitter at Jason Howell. Also, I do Tech News Weekly with Micah Sargent. Actually, this Thursday, Micah's out, so I'm going to be doing the show with Ant Pruitt. So I'm really looking forward to that. twit.tv/TNW. And do not want to forget Club Twit, twit.tv/Club Twit. That's our ad-free subscription tier here at Twit. You get every single show that we do with the ads removed. You won't even hear this ad in the Club Twit feeds. Also an exclusive Twit Plus podcast feed. We throw lots of extra content in there, not just post-show and pre-show stuff, which we do put in there from time to time, but also specifically made for the Club club content, interviews with some of your favorite people from the network, Stacey Higginbotham's book club, This Week in Space, which actually just launched as an actual podcast outside of the club, kind of had some rehearsals and run-throughs in the club. This week in the Untitled Linux show, there we go. That's a Twit Plus special. So lots of extra content. And then, of course, we have the Discord as members-only Discord. Awesome stuff. $7 a month. twit.tv/clubtwit. As for this show, find it at twit.tv/AAA. We record every Tuesday evening. You should get it in your podcast feed sometime late Tuesday, early Wednesday, depending on where you're at, after Victor does all of his hard work on the back end. But twit.tv/AAA, and you subscribe, and you don't even have to think about it. And that's it. We've reached the end of this episode of All About Android. Toodle pip. We'll see you next Tuesday. Bye, everybody.
Toodle pip.
Could be my new favorite word.
Toodle pip.
Unbelievable. I love it.
Toodle pip.
Hey, I'm Rod Pyle, editor of Ad Astra Magazine, and each week I'm joined by Tarek Malik, the editor-in-chief over at Space.com, in our new This Week in Space podcast. Every Friday, Tarek and I take a deep dive into the stories that define the new space age. What's NASA up to? When will Americans once again set foot on the moon? And how about those samples from the Perseverance rover? When are those coming home? What the heck has Elon Musk done now? In addition to all the latest and greatest in space exploration, we'll take an occasional look at bits of spaceflight history that you probably never heard of, and all with an eye towards having a good time along the way. Check us out in your favorite podcatcher.